Hello. Well, here we are back again, English 210, listening. And today we continue the subject we began last time, as you remember, about food. Last time we went shopping. Well, I think today we talk about eating. And as you see in the paper, advice show healthy eating. As you remember, in the second half of each of our units, we listen to either a story, a conversation, or a report, and you have to try and understand it, and if necessary, even take notes. We're going to look at that aspect today. But let's introduce the subject, as you see there, healthy eating. Before you listen, pre-listening questions. In the United States, people learn that they should eat food from the 4 major food groups: grains, wheat, corn, rice, etc., fruits and vegetables, dairy, milk, cheese, yogurt, etc., and protein foods, meat, fish, beans, nuts, eggs, etc. Before you listen, answer these questions. Let's talk about them. You see the photo there, you see those 2 gentlemen, and they're asking you, are these young men healthy eaters? I can hear you all yelling no, because they're eating pizza. And of course, pizza is junk food. Number 2, do you eat like these young men? I hope not. For example, do you like junk food? Well, that's what these people are eating, hamburgers and cheeseburgers and pizzas. What is your favorite type? Well, I can't know that, and I probably wouldn't eat it anyhow. Number 3, do you ever eat canned or frozen food? I hope you're acquainted with the idea of canned in metal, frozen food. Why or why not? Well, sometimes it's cheaper, sometimes it's easier to get canned food. Well, let's move on to our vocabulary. In the vocabulary section here, we have various vocabulary items. I've already solved it for you. Milk is a good source of calcium. Source is going to be an important word for us, because when you eat, you want to know if the food is a source of protein, a source of vitamins, a source of minerals. So we choose here milk is a good source of calcium, and our choice is, of course, G, a place where something comes from. Number 2, vitamins and minerals. We've chosen E, helpful elements in many foods that are used by our bodies. We can get most vitamins and minerals from food. We don't have to take pills. We'll hear about that in our lecture. 3, gain. The verb to gain, if you start to gain weight, you are probably eating more food than your body needs. And as you see, H is chosen to increase, to get larger. Gain and lose. Gain weight, lose weight. Number 4, the verb to skip. We have it here in the phrase, if you skip breakfast. Skip means to go over, and we choose, therefore, F, not to do or have something. If you skip breakfast, you will be really hungry by lunchtime. Number 5, the vocabulary word is decay. Tooth decay. Dentists try to teach children good brushing and eating habits so they won't get tooth decay. And we've chosen A, weakening or rotting. Number 6, cut down on, a 3-word verb, phrasal verb, 3 parts, cut down on. And we've chosen C, meaning to reduce or have less. The doctor told John to cut down on coffee to help him sleep better. Today, most of us need to cut down on food rather than to eat more. Number 7, our vocabulary word is calories. Calories, and we've chosen here B, a unit for measuring the energy value of food. A piece of bread has about 75 calories. As we'll find out in the lecture, if you want to lose weight, you want to reduce your calories. And finally, fiber. Fiber helps food move through our bodies. And we chose here D, a food substance that comes from plants and that we need for digestion. Now, as I told you, today we're going to have a talk about healthy eating. I would like you to listen to our talk, first of all, and see if you can answer this simple question: what are some important things you can do to eat right? So here is it's a television program, and we're going to hear about healthy eating. So listen and try to find out what the main ideas are. Good evening. Welcome to the show, Eating Right. You know, with people so busy today, they don't have a lot of time to shop or plan what to eat. This is true, but healthy eating might just give you a longer and happier life. So here are some things we should all think about regarding diet. The first point, eat lots of fruits and vegetables. Why? They're a good source of vitamins and minerals, and a good source of fiber. Also, most of them are low in calories, and they're low in fat. So eating them may help protect you against cancer. So it's a good idea to put an apple or a banana in your lunchbox. Put a carrot in for a snack. Forget about potato chips. That's right, fruits, a great dessert. Avoid those sugary sweets, the sugary drinks, the cookies, the cakes, the candies, the sodas. Now, a second point you should remember is do not have too much sugar in your diet. Too much sugar can lead to health problems. It leads to weight gain, gets you fat, tooth decay, meaning trips to the dentist. It can even lead to a very dangerous disease called diabetes. So, watching sugar is a serious matter. Now, the third thing you want to reduce, you want to stay away from, is fat. Cutting down on fat will make your diet better. It will help you to lose weight, or at least not gain weight. It can lower your chance of getting heart disease, the chance of cancer. So I advise you cut back on those cheeseburgers, hamburgers, French fries, potato chips. They're all full of fat. And also, don't forget, they're also full of salt. That's another thing we should all avoid, is too much salt. I'd like to make a positive suggestion as well. We said avoid sugar, avoid fat, avoid salt, but eat things that have fiber, such as whole grains. Whole grain means the grain before it's refined. So you want to eat not white bread, but dark bread. You want to eat the dark rice, not the white rice. This way you'll get plenty of fiber, vitamins, and minerals. Well, that's it. If you follow all of these ideas, you'll be much healthier. But I don't want to forget something about what you drink. Don't drink too much coffee. Coffee can make you nervous. It can affect your sleep. It can even affect your heart. So coffee is another substance to avoid. Now, listening to that, I'm sure you picked out the major points about avoiding sugars, avoiding fats, avoiding salt, and avoiding coffee. Now look at your book, or if you don't, I'll supply you with the chart here. This chart is giving you an idea of how to take notes. When you take notes, you don't just go across the page randomly, you try to organize the facts. Here we have a chart, things you should eat, reasons, and examples. Now, if you were listening to this and taking notes, you might have taken down vegetables you should eat, reasons, they give you fiber, vitamins, minerals. The example we had was carrots. For fruits, the same reasons, fiber, vitamins, minerals. Examples we had were apple and banana. We heard at the end of the lecture about whole grains. Again, fiber, vitamins, minerals. And we had the example of brown rice and whole wheat. Now, things you shouldn't eat or drink. There were 4 of them: sugar, fat, salt, and coffee. You see how clearly they're indicated here. If you're taking notes, don't try to write from one side of the page to the other. Try to organize on the page the information that you have. Besides sugar, we heard that it helps weight gain, it helps tooth decay, it causes disease. We heard about diabetes. Examples we had were sugary drinks. We heard about the cookies and the cakes. Fat, we heard again about weight gain and disease, heart disease and cancer. Examples we had were cheeseburger, French fries, and chips. Salt, we heard, were the same. Again, weight gain, the same things as with fat. And with coffee, we heard about getting nervous and no sleep. Now, this is an indication to you of how you take down information if you're listening to a passage like this. You may have to do this when you are being examined. Take down information, and then you would use that information to answer questions. All right, let's move on to the next exercise. Using vocabulary. Discuss the following questions with a partner. Well, I guess I'm your partner. Use the underlined vocabulary in your answers. Which meal are you least likely to skip? Which meal are you most likely to skip? Well, if you're like most of my students, you are skipping breakfast. It's a big mistake. Most of my students come to class and they skip breakfast. A big mistake. Should not skip it. You shouldn't skip any of your meals. You should get all of your meals, 3 meals a day. Don't skip them. The next one is about gaining weight. Bodybuilders, football players, and other athletes often try to gain weight and strength. Most of us are trying to lose weight, but they want to gain it. What types of foods would you suggest? Well, as you heard in our passage about sugars and fats, so candy bars and a fat steak and things like that would be a way to gain weight. Number 3, cutting down on. What do you eat or drink that you know may be bad for your teeth? Would you consider stopping? I hope so. I hope you would consider stopping. And would you cut down on these things? It would be a good idea. If you cut down on sugary drinks, it will help your teeth. So how do you try to avoid teeth decay? Of course, not only that you avoid sugars, but you brush and get these sugars and starches out of your teeth after you eat. Number 4, calories. If you want to lose weight, you're watching calories. Do you ever think about the number of calories in certain foods you eat? Well, maybe you do, maybe you don't. But if you want to lose weight, you better start thinking in terms of calories. A food that has a lot of sugar will have a lot of calories. A lot of fat will also give you calories. It's the measure of the energy in that food. Do you read food labels? They will tell you about the calories and also about the nutrients. Which of your favorite foods do you think are the best sources of vitamins and minerals? Well, we heard that probably fruits and vegetables are the best thing to turn to. And finally, fiber. What kinds of foods do you eat to get fiber? Vegetables, of course, but grain is very good. Cereals at your meals will help you. Now, at the bottom of the page, we have an exercise about talking it over, comparing eating habits. Well, it's very hard for us to compare since you're there and I'm here, but you see here what someone might write down. What you eat for breakfast: I eat rice. When I travel, I eat cereal. The timings: I sometimes eat nuts and chips. I often have snacks. So you would fill in your own ideas about that. Now we come to a very interesting subject. For our contents, we have to know about different places to eat. And I'm going to show you, I hope that you can see these clearly now, these nice colored pictures here of different places to eat. I'm going to try and flatten them out so you can see them clearly. All right. Well, maybe I have to take them one at a time. At the top there you see a nice restaurant. You see the nice restaurant with the white cloths on the table. Beside it, I'm going to move this over so you see it more clearly. We see up there at the top the cafeteria, people going down the line, taking what they want, a cafeteria. At the bottom here we see something we see so much here in Saudi Arabia, a fast food place, sitting in the car and they hand it out to you. It looks like McDonald's. And finally, something we don't have here so much, and this is called a diner. In a diner, you have a counter. You see on the one side, people standing, and on the other side, a counter. So you're served the food at the counter. You can sit there, or you can take the food to your table. Now, we're going to talk about these different kinds of places to eat on the next page here, and then we're going to have some context where you have to decide where the people are according to what they're saying. All right, number one, what kind of food does each place serve? Well, in a restaurant, you can expect very fine food, Chinese restaurant or a Mexican restaurant. So a restaurant would imply having waiters, people coming to the table. Number two, who serves the food? Well, in a restaurant, the waiter serves you the food, but of course, in a fast food restaurant, you have to go and get it yourself, also in a cafeteria. The same is true in the diner. So a true restaurant has waiters that serve you the food, and that's what makes it a restaurant. Number three, which one is probably the most expensive? Well, the restaurant. The cheapest? A fast food place or a diner. These are cheaper. Cafeterias, at least in England and America, unlike here, cafeterias can be very good. Good food. We don't really think of them as being a cheap place to eat. The nice thing there is it's fast. You don't have to have the waiter come to your table. The next question, number four, when would you choose to eat in each kind of place? Well, a restaurant, usually you wouldn't go to early in the morning. You might go for lunch, especially for dinner. Why? Because a restaurant takes time. The waiter comes, you order the food, you wait for the food to come, so you need time. A diner, a good place for a breakfast, fast food, anytime. And a cafeteria, also probably at a major meal, because it serves a wide variety of food. Which kinds of places have you tried? Well, I don't know, but I think living in Saudi Arabia, you've probably been to all of them except a diner. Diners are just something very typically actually American. What are some other types of places to eat? Well, I suppose you could go to a little stand, for example, at the beach. Maybe a little hamburger stand would offer food. But I think most of us would go either to a restaurant, to a cafeteria, or to a fast food restaurant. Now, I introduced those facts because you need them in listening to the coming context, because you have to listen and choose among possibilities. Now, you see here the first the conversation. You're going to listen to it and see how you should have decided. This is the conversation. Now listen and see how this person chose that it was a nice restaurant. Conversation 1. Good evening. My name is Pierre, and I'm at your table this evening. Would you like something to drink? No thanks, but we'd like to order some appetizers. Certainly. Here are your menus. Our specials tonight are lemon chicken and fresh broiled swordfish. Question. What kind of eating place are we at? Now you see the choice is nice restaurant. How did we decide that? The clues were, would you like? Someone comes and asks you, what would you like? We have menus and we have specials. And this gives us the idea that we have a waiter, someone taking care of us. So that means it's a nice restaurant. Let's go to the next conversation. Conversation 2. This is Felipe and Salim. Felipe says, why don't we sit at the counter? There aren't any free tables. Salim, fine. Waitress, coffee? Felipe, yes. Salim, yes, please. Okay, I'll be right back to take your order. Now, we've decided in this case that it's this should have been, it's the diner. I'm sorry, I looked at it wrong. Yes, the diner. And why is it the diner? Because we heard about a counter. You don't sit at a table, you sit at a counter, or you go to the table. And coffee, there wasn't talk about having a large meal. The waitress did not give them a menu, so it's actually a less elegant place than a restaurant. So we chose diner. Listen to number 3. A. These salads look great. Do you want one of these? B. No, I'm going to have one of those hot dishes over there. Server, what would you like? A, is that mushroom soup? Server, no, it's bean soup. How much is it? $2 a bowl. Pay at the cashier. Now here we chose cafeteria. Why? Because the people are saying, do you like that over there or here? That means they're looking at the food. If you go to a regular restaurant, you don't have that choice. Only in a cafeteria is the food in front of you and you could talk about it. Also, we heard that they're going to be paying at a cashier. They say the food looks great. Well, you only know that in a cafeteria. Other places you'll have to wait until the food comes. Okay, let's listen to conversation 4 now, the last one. May I take your order? John, I'll have 2 burritos, no onions, and 2 small Cokes. Server, for here or to go? John, for here. Oh, and an order of nachos. Server, that'll be $8. Now, where are the speakers? We've chosen a fast food place. Why? Because he was asked, do you want it here or to go? Also, we heard burritos, Cokes, nachos. This is fast food types of things. Maybe you know about Mexican food more. Maybe you expect to hear cheeseburger or hamburger or something like that. So we expect this is a fast food restaurant, and so that was the best choice. Now, these are contexts, and every unit we have them. You hear a context, a conversation, and you must decide between various choices. Hear about different kinds of food places. Remember, last time it was just deciding which season it was, spring, summer, or fall. So that's something we do each time we have context. This is our 3rd unit, as you'll remember. Always at the end of each unit, we move on to a task. We actually have 2 tasks in this unit, and both of them have to do with food. And the first one is about a recipe. Please notice there the word recipe. We have 2 tasks under the title Real World Tasks, Recipes, and Regional Foods. Now what you're going to be doing is taking notes on a recipe. So let's look at how it looks in your book. Sorry, I'm taking a little time here. Here we are. Here we are with our real-world task, recipes and regional foods. Now, if you're given a recipe, your job is to get down the ingredients, the substances needed for the food. You should know the word serve, which means bring to the customer or the person eating. The word beat, to hit hard. We beat potatoes and eggs and some different foods in order to get them to the type we want. Melt, to change from solid to liquid. Many of us melt here in summer. I'm joking. Dip, to put into a liquid for a short time. And finally, fry, heat in oil. These are all terms we'll need for our recipe. Now, what is our recipe today? Our recipe is French toast. Okay, to begin French toast, first of all, you need to get down the ingredients. And this is what you would hear. To make French toast for 4 people, here's what you need. 2 eggs, 1 cup of milk, a half teaspoon of salt, and about a tablespoon of butter. Have you got all that? Now notice cup milk, 2 eggs, half TSP is teaspoon, the small spoon we use, and then 1 tablespoon TBSP. This is a larger spoon. Okay, these are measures, and so we have 4 different ingredients for this particular dish that we are making called French toast. At the bottom of the page, for those who have it, you can read later the culture note about the measurements being used here, the teaspoon and the tablespoon. All right, let's move on to actually do the recipe. You have the ingredients, and now it's time to make it. Now, of course, when you start doing this, the places were empty. I've filled them in so you can see. And here's what we hear. First, beat the eggs, milk, and salt with a fork for a minute until they're well mixed. Notice that's our first. Now, if you were taking notes on this, you wouldn't have all the words, but you have to get eggs, milk, and salt with fork. We can see it's being beat up there in the example, in the picture. Continuing, then melt the butter in a frying pan. If you're taking notes, you'd want to get down. Butter, frying pan. Next, while the butter is melting, dip 8 slices of bread into the egg mixture. Now, important to get down the number. 8 slices, bread, into mixture, as we see in the picture. Now we continue with the recipe here at the bottom. Then, when the butter is hot, fry the bread slices until they're golden brown. And finally, serve them on warm plate with butter, syrup, or jam. So this is a recipe. So if you had this outline and you had to find, for example, how many slices or where the butter is, you should be able to do that. This is, again, an example of taking down information. Listening is part of it, but also getting down the information. Now, it says here to share recipes. I wish we could, but it's very hard for us to share recipes over this great distance. But you might think of something like kebsa, or you might think of something like roast beef, and think about the different steps you would do in order to make that recipe. We now move to the second topic in our task. The first one was a recipe, but now we're going to be looking at regional food, something to make you hungry. I hope you're not watching this lecture with an empty stomach. Here we see some food. We call this regional because we associate it with particular places. Now, on the left, we see sushi. Of course, we'd say, oh, that's Oriental, that's Japanese. And on the other side, on the right, we see some enchiladas with fried beans, with rice and fried beans. And if you know your foods, you'll know that we're talking about Mexican food. So that's what we're going to be doing something about in a few minutes. We have some introductory questions here at the bottom of the page. Do you know of any regions or places famous for special kinds of food? Well, my students usually come up with Chinese food, and they even come up with Saudi food, things like kebsa and harissa and all kinds of things like that. So those are considered regional. They're not found over a great area. We know where the person is who makes that food. Can you name some foreign foods and the countries they come from? Well, we just had sushi there from Japan. You could think of spaghetti from Italy. Think of borscht from Russia, curry from India. We all know many regional foods. But our job today is to listen, or your job is to listen and put the right regional foods in the right place. Well, you see the region we're looking at today is North America. We see the United States and above it Canada. And so you're going to hear about some regional foods, and it would be your job to put the food in the right place. So please listen and notice how we move around the map and we fill in the missing parts. You may have to do something like that later. Look at the map of the United States and Canada. As you hear the name of each food, write it on the place where it is popular. Good afternoon. I'm going to talk about some interesting foods of North America. We're going to begin in Western Canada. That's on the left of the map to the north. Vancouver. Vancouver in British Columbia has lots of Chinese people living there, so it's famous for good Chinese food, but also for a famous fish, salmon. Salmon, S-A-L-M-O-N, salmon, a famous dish in that part of North America. So if you go to Vancouver, the regional food would probably be salmon. We then move down the coast. We're moving down the coast of the country to San Francisco. San Francisco is another place that has a lot of Chinese, a lot of Oriental influence. And so if you go there, you could find some excellent Chinese and Japanese restaurants. So a good place for Chinese and Japanese food. If you want something local from San Francisco, they have a special bread. It's called sourdough bread. So if you go to San Francisco, you'll go down to Fisherman's Wharf and have some sourdough bread. We now move across the south of the country to a large state called Texas. Some of you know, of course, that it's on the border with Mexico, and its food is influenced very much by Mexico. We sometimes speak of Tex-Mex food. Now, if you go to Texas, be sure to have some spicy Mexican food. You can have some very good Mexican food anywhere in Texas. Let's move now further north to the center of the country, a state called Wisconsin. Wisconsin is sometimes called the dairyland of the United States because it has so many farms, and therefore it's not surprising the specialty in Wisconsin is cheese, especially cheddar cheese, but cheese is a specialty. Moving south from Wisconsin, we see Chicago. Chicago was once the packing center for meat, and it has kept this tradition and is famous for its steak. Now, I'm sure you know that steak refers to a thick slice of meat, and in English, when you say I'm having a steak, we always think of beef. It is possible to have a lamb steak or a fish steak, but usually steak refers to beef. So if you want a good beef, a good steak, go to Chicago. All right, now we'll move to the East Coast, and we'll start at the top. We'll start in Canada. I'm sure you see the city called Montreal. Some of you will not be surprised to see French food listed there because Montreal is part of Quebec. It's the main city of Quebec, and it's a French-speaking area, and so if you go there, be sure to eat French food. On the coast, we have the state of Maine, and Maine is famous for its lobster. Excellent lobster if you go to Maine. So that's a regional food in Maine. This is New England, and Maine is famous for its lobster. Moving down the coast, we come to Georgia. Georgia, famous for its fried chicken. And finally, Florida, a state that's famous for its citrus fruit, oranges, as well as lemons and grapefruit and things like that. But oranges is listed there. Now, I'm sure I've made you very hungry, and probably you're going to have to move right away to your kitchen to make something or out to a fast food or other restaurant after this lecture. I hope you found it as delicious as I did. Thank you very much.